Hello, I'm Marion Waite and I'm Senior Lecturer and Course Leader of the MSc Nursing Studies, which is an online distance learning programme which has run from Oxford Brookes University since 2008. And today I'm sharing good practice with two of my colleagues from other faculties in the university, Dr. Jane Spiro and Dr. Sally Hughes, who both run online distance courses. So Sally, would you like to give me an example of something that you think is that you'd like to share about your course?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Thank you for inviting me. I think one of the things that in thinking about setting up the programme that we wanted to make sure of was that our students were very comfortable with the material that they were going to be asked to work with, comfortable with the technology. And we had very good advice that a reasonable period of time for induction was very necessary. So we set up a 2-week induction programme which gives the students an opportunity to get to know each other, so they build up their student profile. But it also takes them through a series of quite organised activities which enable them to make sure that they are comfortable within Moodle itself. They can download files, they can upload files, they know how to turn it in. We had a bit of an experiment with some videos that we had them download, and a less than successful experiment with some of the PowerPoint automated slideshow. And part of the reason that was unsuccessful was that it was a very, very large file and the file download process was very slow. So it's very useful to us and fairly, I think, confirming to the students, because there was a lot of support to them if they had any questions. So that would be one area. After that 2-week period, the students enter into the first module. I think the other practice, I would say, equally has to do with timing, and that's at the end of the module. Each module lasts for 10 weeks, 10 units. Each unit is covered over a week, but at the end of the module the students have an additional 2 weeks in which to reflect and produce their final assessment. So the assessment throughout the module, but the major assessment, which in the case of the first module is 60%, so quite a substantial piece of work. 2 weeks of when they're not being asked to do anything else, they're just focusing. So I think it's about timing for me, is that best practice.
That sounds really good, thank you, Sally. Jane?
So I run a master's programme for teachers of English worldwide. So they are often working in isolation in, say, rural areas of Iraq, or recently, torn by an earthquake areas in Taiwan, Brazil, Japan. So one of the critical things for my online programme is to build community, so they feel that they're learning from one another and are part of a group. So one of the first activities that I invite them to do is to share in an online discussion a critical incident in their teaching, which I describe as a moment that was significant for them in any way, maybe where they discovered something, realised something, or something changed as a result. They share those critical incidents, and they are then invited to read the others in the group and to identify shared values, shared beliefs, shared issues and shared concerns. So they're recognising synergies and connections across the world and across different sectors. They then work in small groups of between 3 and 4 to generate core statements about their beliefs as teachers. So from that we have generated mission statements from the cohort which they can all buy into and believe in, and which become the kind of grounding for the rest of our module on language teaching methodology. So it's been a very inspiring process. And then as that programme has built, I've shared with each year what the mission statements were of previous years. And some quite long-term connections have been made, friendships have been made as a result across continents and across the planet. Another thing that we do, which I think is significant to good practice, is that I also run the same programme for campus-based students. So twice a term there are tasks where the online and the campus students are required to engage with one another. So they engage with one another on this first critical incident activity. They also engage with one another on sharing the characteristics of a classroom context, what the constraints are, what the challenges are, and what their particular chosen action point would be. And they then share with each other insights, resources, good ideas. I've been in that situation, this is what I did. And there's really active learning as a result of that as well. And then the campus students, I invite them each week, one of them to write a summary of what emerged from our campus discussion, and they post that online as well. So there's constant sort of interaction. So the campus students have reasons to interact with their online colleagues, and their online colleagues have reasons to interact with one another, and it generates a strong sense of community and learning from one another.
That sounds really creative.
Yes. So we have sort of some really interesting concrete examples of how they've helped one another. Say, for example, a British student teaching in China through the British Council who kind of buddied with a Chinese student studying full-time on campus. So the British student would say, this is my experience with the Chinese classroom. What should I do? Is this typical? And the Chinese student would say, it is typical in these ways, and this is what I did when I was in the Chinese classroom, and they formed a kind of collaboration which helped them both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, yes, that's amazing. I've been running my course since 2008, and in actual fact, most of the students who come on the online course are part-time, and some of them have actually been on the course for about 3 years, so they've become really, really experienced distance learners. And because most of them are nurses, qualified nurses in practice, part of their own professional development is to develop as teachers themselves, clinical educators, teachers in practice, and they're very interested because they've become such expert online learners. What we're doing this year is we're piloting a project where 2 of them are going to be teaching assistants on modules during the course, and they're going to get independent study as credit for independent study for undertaking that role. So it enables them to bring into, integrate into the course their expertise as distance learners, but also it enables them to bring their practice-based expertise into the course as well, which is very good. I think the other thing that we've done within our online courses within the faculty is we've implemented real-time classrooms, because we felt all along, like many of the discussions that we've had when we meet as a group about this issue about equity between on-campus courses and distance learning courses, and one of the things that we've integrated is real-time marking workshops, and we've got quantitative data about how much that actually improves the marks within the modules, so that's a really positive thing for students.
So do you give feedback about assignments in real time? Is it a feedback giving?
Yeah, it kind of follows the assessment compact in the sense that it's timed so that each of the students has had their own formative feedback from their assignments. So the following week we have the marking workshop, and they've had an opportunity to have their own feedback and then compare that with sample assignments from the previous year. But it's definitely made big impact on student engagement in the assessment process, and I think we've learnt a lot from it as well in terms of informing our ongoing practice and making sure that the assessment actually does assess what it's supposed to assess and readjusted it in.
So can I just check the details that this is the marking workshop occurs after a formative feedback and then feeds into the summative feedback, so it really clarifies learning outcomes.
And what we've done as an outcome is we've actually adapted our marking criteria for each module, so it's a really good time to actually engage the students with marking criteria and say, because we do have these general marking criteria statements, well actually this is what this means
in practice.
in this module.
Yeah.
This is what this actually means. So I
Yes.
think that's helped the students a lot.